Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome back to The Breakdown. I am Tara Setmayer, and our friend, the Rook Wilson, will be back next week. Before we get started tonight, I just wanted to send our prayers to the folks, our fellow Americans in the line of Hurricane Delta down there in the Gulf Coast. They're getting hit right now, and anyone who's ever been in the path of a hurricane knows how serious this is. And this is the second hurricane they're getting hit with in only a matter of weeks. And we just want to send our prayers to them. Hope everyone is safe. And geez, 2020. It's only the second time we've ever had to go into the Greek alphabet for hurricanes. This hurricane season has been unbelievable. And we have 7 weeks to go. Stay safe, you guys, down there in the Gulf Coast and anyone in the path. All right. Well, more happy news. We are 25 days away from the election. We have 210 plus thousand dead Americans from COVID. And tonight we are going to break down what else is going on. We've got a white supremacist domestic terrorist problem happening. And tonight's guest is my friend and CNN analyst and former DHS official, Juliette Kayyem. She'll be joining us in a little bit to talk about what the hell is going on with these white domestic terrorists. So these white supremacists. So stay tuned for that. As always, you can go to Twitter and you can send us your questions. Send them to hashtag #AskTheBreakdown. Hashtag #AskTheBreakdown. Send in your questions. We will pull them and answer some of them. You can ask Juliette directly if you'd like. If so, address it to her. We also have the old school voicemail, which is always my favorite. We'd love to hear your voices. You can call us at 701-203-1208. And tonight we have another element that we're introducing. It's experimental. We're going to try it out. We're going to take live callers, just like a radio show. It's like talk radio here. We're going to take live callers. So you can call in on Zoom. There's the number 841-3083-9025. And we'll have a couple. I'm sorry, that's the meeting ID, not the number. And we'll get you in on Zoom, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to some of you live tonight. It's Friday. We're doing something a little bit different. It's our first Friday show. And if you saw the tweet, we are having a beverage. Thank God it's Friday. It's been a week, and we're going to play a little drinking game. So tonight, during the show, if Donald Trump tweets anything, take a drink. If my cat Tiki or any animal comes into anyone's shot, take a drink. And like I said, it's Friday. You can take a drink. So that's it tonight. We're going to be a little looser, even though we're talking serious subject matters. But for goodness sakes, we've got to have some levity and sip a little wine to get us through it. So meanwhile, let's get into what we missed since last night.
Meanwhile, at Trump's White House lair.
Here was the President of the United States calling for the arrest of Joe Biden.
These people should be indicted, and that includes Obama, and it includes Biden.
It's the last gasp of a desperate, failing man.
Reed Galen called him Benito Trumpolini. And it is amazing that all of these guys with this autocratic fetish, they certainly do like the balconies, don't they?
13 men now facing charges accused of planning to abduct Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
This should not stand in the United States of America.
Goodness gracious. That deserves a sip. All right. Since yesterday, we've had the President of the United States do campaign videos from the White House. He's doing an infomercial for Regeneron, a quote, miracle cure for COVID. He's done Rush Limbaugh in a virtual town hall where he's claimed that he's no longer taking any medicine whatsoever for COVID-19. Apparently, he's perfectly fine in his mind. And he's done a pair of unhinged call-in interviews on Fox News. In the middle of all of that, the FBI announced that they uncovered a plot by right-wing domestic terrorist militia organizations to kidnap the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, and overthrow state governments. Roll the tape.
Last night, the FBI and Michigan State Police arrested 6 individuals charged in a federal complaint with conspiring to kidnap the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
The individuals in custody are suspected to have attempted to identify the home addresses of law enforcement officers in order to target them, made threats of violence intended to instigate a civil war, and engaged in planning and training for an operation to attack the Capitol building of Michigan and to kidnap government officials, including the governor of Michigan.
As a mom with 2 teenage daughters and 3 stepsons, my husband and I are eternally grateful to everyone who put themselves in harm's way to keep our family safe. Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these 2 Michigan militia groups. Stand back and stand by, he told them. Hate groups heard the President's words not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry.
It's not just the right, it's the left. But the left has been the problem for a long time. Antifa is a big, big problem. And, I see Whitmer today, she's complaining, but it was our Justice Department that arrested the people that she was complaining about. It was my Justice Department that arrested them. But instead, she goes and does her little political act, and she keeps her state closed, although we just won the big case, as you know, to open up Michigan, because what she's doing is a horrible thing to the people.
We already know that the President of the United States is the super spreader in chief. Now, he is literally stoking the fires of white supremacy and white nationalism in our country, has yet to condemn this. This is one of the most serious acts of attempted domestic terrorism that we've seen in a long time. And it's remarkable that this is where we are. It's been over 24 hours and the president has yet to condemn this. Our guest tonight, I want to bring in my good friend, Juliette Kayyem. She's got quite the resume. She's a CEO. She's a national security analyst at CNN, my colleague over there. She's a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School, where I was a fellow earlier this year before we were evacuated because of COVID. I miss Cambridge. And for the purposes of tonight's conversation, we're going to focus on Juliette's experience over at the Department of Homeland Security and her national security expertise as we talk about what the hell is going on with these white nationalist groups becoming operational. Yeah. Juliette, welcome. I'm so happy you are with me tonight.
Oh my God, I'm like exhausted from that
Aren't
opening.
we all?
That opening was like, oh my God, that opening was like with that music. And what were you guys thinking? I'm terrified. Okay, it was good though. Hi.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we do that so that people understand the seriousness of what's happening because you just can't. Totally it feels like we're in a movie, right? It feels like we're in a movie.
The shining music. The shining music as you're showing Trump. I'm into that. I like that. The sort of, it is hard. All work and no play makes Donna Del Boy or whatever it was. Makes right. We got to keep him busy.
Exactly.
Hi.
Well, that's why we're trying to bring some levity, but some seriousness to this conversation because we're actually I know you're participating. You're participating in our Drinking Friday tonight, so that it's the only way we can get through this. All right. So 13 people were arrested. It was people from a couple of militia groups, and I'm going to stop calling them militias because it's more than that. They're domestic terrorists, right? They're domestic terrorists. When you were in the Department of Homeland Security, you dealt with some of this, and the FBI reported in 2019 that the deadliest year for domestic terrorism here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And it was the deadliest year since the Oklahoma City bombing. And in the 1990s, there was a nexus between the Oklahoma City bombing and some of these militias, terrorist groups, specifically in Michigan. I believe Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh spent some time with these groups. Are you really are you surprised by this at all?
No. I mean, the sophistication of the planning was pretty good. I mean, this is not a bunch of sort of losers who sort of look online and like think, oh, we're gonna kidnap the governor and that's it. I mean, they were pretty sophisticated in terms of their planning. They knew where she lived. They were organizing. They were purchasing things. So this was pretty far along. Although the FBI tells us that the governor was never in imminent danger because by the time that they had actually planned that they had been sufficiently infiltrated. But I'm not. But that's just like one. No one's surprised at the rise of white supremacy and the kind. Well, so white supremacy and the kind of terrorism that you're seeing now. So I want to actually. I just made a little bit of a slip. I want to separate different kinds of radicalization going on. So there's the white supremacy radicalization, which is the KKK, Charleston. The men that we see who are, are not just racist, but immigrant intolerant, basically the sort of anti-progressive movement. Well, what I believe that we're seeing here, and we're learning more about them, is an equally toxic and anti-progressive. I don't think these guys are civil rights guys. I don't think they sort of support, equal rights for all. But they're much more motivated by an anti-government sentiment, and that's what's so interesting because they view Trump as sort of anti-government with them, even though he's the head of the government. And so they hear things like liberate Michigan, or they hear what the president says about masking or going to the polling booth and making sure the government isn't screwing you, as if Trump isn't the government. That's what's going on here. And so Trump is clearly the leader of both in different ways. He's you've heard me on CNN, he's utilizing the tools of stochastic terrorism to instigate people, and they know exactly what he's saying. He doesn't have to actually say it. So liberate Michigan or both sides, those are words that they hear, which are not words of condemnation, not words of isolation, not words of shaming. They are words of, I get you people. They're these.
Right. Right.
I see you.
We're here. Right.
Yeah. I see you. And so the fact he hasn't condemned it. And in fact, I have to be honest with you, this sort of drives me nuts now. Like, on Twitter and these reporters saying, the president really needs to come out and condemn this. Oh, come on. Why should we give him, at this stage, why should we give him that out? Like, to me, we've got 20, however many days, no prisoners the next 25 or 26 days, in the sense of, why would you let Trump have an out? Like, we know exactly what he's doing or what he's going to try to do leading up to the election.
And he's been doing it. I mean, it's like, how many chances do you get
from the
here?
beginning. Yeah.
Right. Since Charlottesville, for goodness sake.
No, but
how many chances?
Yeah, and you see these people on Twitter or reporters saying, this is an opportunity for the president to stand against. You're like, no, it's not.
No.
Not only will he not do it, but if he did it, why should we want it? I mean, in other words, he's their leader. He needs to be isolated, condemned, voted out. It means nothing to me anymore. Literally what he says does not matter to me anymore for a second.
Exactly. I mean, he's had plenty of opportunity. And even if he were to come out and resoundingly condemn these things, it wouldn't matter because it's disingenuous as all hell. And we see right through that. So you're right about that. He needs to be condemned. He needs to be condemned, and his feet need to be held to the fire, which is why we're doing what we're doing at the Lincoln Project and other groups to point this out. He doesn't get a pass at this point. He's a co-conspirator in all of these things because he's the one that's given them license to go operational. Let me ask you, in 2009, it's okay. In 2009, there was a report that came out from DHS talking about the rise of domestic terrorism threats. And I remember, because I was on Capitol Hill at the time, Republicans freaked out. They were like, they're just trying to get away from Islamic terrorism. They don't want to call terrorism for what it is. Now they're coming for the gun owners, and they're calling it domestic terrorism. And they raised holy hell on this. And that report ended up getting buried. What happened? Were you privy to that? And what happened between then and now?
Yeah, that was my first weeks there. And it came at a time, this is, Obama comes in. There's increased threats against him as the first African American president, and so much so people sort of forget this. So much so that in the transition between Bush and Obama, we asked Michael Chertoff, Bush's Secretary of Homeland Security, to stay an extra day because you didn't want to transition on January 20th because the threat matrix was so high because Obama and the girls and everything. So so the Secret Service and who you're familiar with. So this report comes out sort of highlighting that in the era leading up to Obama becoming president, there was a rise of white supremacy, and it got shot down, and we blinked, I mean, in the sense that it was pretty early on. We weren't sure what to expect. The Hill was really against us, and so it never got issued. And then, and there was then this, huge debate about Islamic terrorism and what we were calling it. And then the truth is that there started to be a rise of this lone wolf Islamic terrorism in the later part of the early part of the second term of Obama. We started to see it: Pulse nightclub, the Times Square, the bombing attempt over Detroit. So it wasn't like there wasn't an ISIS threat, but what was happening under the surface then exploded under Trump because of his sort of welcoming nature. I mean, he's just not a passive participant. I mean, he is now relevant to this debate as its unstated leader, and someone who doesn't condemn it. I've said often on air, I really believe 2020, the election, is about whether we'll bring shame back to this country. In other words, our capacity to shame people. The president doesn't do so. And I know I'm old enough. I've read enough history to know that, bad ideologies don't die. Nazism didn't die with the end of World War II. Racism didn't die with the civil rights movement or civil rights legislation. But, and societies do things to minimize their impact and to be more diverse. And one of the things that they do is they shame people with those sentiments. And so we had been living in a time when the kind of sentiments that you see these men carry would never have been given voice publicly, let alone given voice by the president. And I think we need to begin to, that's what, Project Lincoln knows a lot about shame. I mean, you're basically telling the party there, you have no options here. It's either you're either for America or
that's
or
right.
You're,
we've got the yard sign.
I mean, it's like one or the other.
Got the yard sign.
Exactly. Which is important. I mean, it's important that you can't have these mealy mouth. And I actually think some of these commentators, I forget, I'm not going to name names. I'm partially because I'm forgetting, they sort of they don't want to admit they're for Trump. So they sort of criticize Trump's critics. They're sort of more of the fancy pants Trump supporters. I think Steve was in a fight with some of them today.
Yes.
Those are the most tiresome because they try to pretend like they've chosen. They try to pretend like they've chosen when in fact they don't realize that they've chosen the side that they think they haven't chosen. The idea that we're to be blamed because they can't possibly vote for Biden is like the most hilarious thing.
Listen, I've gotten into many debates with friends of mine about this. I had one before I came on air tonight with a very, very close friend of mine who was quite upset about Biden's tax plan and saying how, that this is crazy. I'm going to go broke if this is, if Biden gets elected and this is the tax plan that he goes. And I said, stop being selfish. Okay. This is bigger than that. This is all of that. We'll argue those political differences later, those policy differences later. This is about the existential threat Trump poses to our democracy. And it's not just about your bank account. That's how we got here. That's how Nazi Germany became Nazi Germany, with people being selfish and not paying attention to what was happening to everyone else, to worrying about their own asses. So it's like, don't do this. I had this whole text debate with one of my really good friends over it, and we will continue it. You know who you are if you're watching the show tonight. I want to ask you a question about these specific groups. There's a bunch of them. It's not just this Michigan group, the Wolverines or whatever. There was a major article that came out in the Atlantic last week about the Oath Keepers, which I had no idea about.
Yep.
You have these Boogaloo guys who want to take down the
Yeah.
government and incite a civil war. They were arrested before a rally in Richmond earlier this year on Martin Luther King Day. Dangerous guys. You have these 3%ers. There's a number of these groups out here. Are any of them new to you, or who should we be most worried about?
So they're all sort of sufficiently organized that there should be a level of worry about them. And I think that Boogaloo is probably the best well-known of all of them and probably the largest. I don't think we have a good sense of how big they are. I mean, you have a sense of their Facebook pages. So the guys who were arrested in Michigan had about 3,000 Facebook followers. I mean, the truth is that the more sophisticated they try to make their plans, the more likely it is that they're going to be discovered, because they're not technologically savvy. This is not, you're not, dealing with a Russian intelligence agency. So that's clearly what happened in Michigan. That's what happened in the previous Boogaloo case. I'm not, and there's always a possibility for just, sort of some guy getting online saying, let's all meet on the corner and go to the nearest polling station. That kind of activity happening on November 3rd. I think the thing that was disturbing a little bit about the Michigan case is to the extent of how interstate it was. There's probably 5 or 6 states mentioned that they were traveling to or recruiting from. And they were so people have to understand, they were using the COVID restriction rules as a galvanizing force. Now, does that sound familiar, right? The masking being a cultural war, social distancing being a cultural war. Why does that sound familiar? Because our president does that every day. So it's about freedom, right? So they're using Democrats, in particular, Democrats promoting masking rules and things like that as a sort of promoting an anti-government sentiment, right? And that's what's happening. So COVID does play into this. The irony, of course, being we'd all be free from COVID if we had a competent government working in March and April. We'd all be out and about now. But
we're going to talk about that next.
So that's like one of their galvanizing issues right now. So so that's like sort of where these guys are. I mean, if I were to guess about what's about to happen, I know a lot of people are very nervous about the election, and maybe I'm not reading the right stuff or whatever, but and I'm not a pollster and I'm not a political, but I mean, it certainly seems like it's more likely than not that there's going to be a decisive win on Tuesday, November 3rd. And if that's the case, I mean, I'm just reading stuff, but I mean, I'm not a pro. And if that's the case, then I think a lot of this crap goes away, because the one thing that these guys are is they don't, I mean, it's part of it depends on how much attention people are going to pay to Trump and stuff like that, but they don't have, they like a winner, and Trump being sick and sort of pathetic and coughing and, and if Chris Christie is very ill, which it seems like he is, you're just going to see like, it could be possible this administration goes out with like a whooping cough rather than
literally
dynamite. Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you about that, because that you're the first person to say that I've heard say that you think that if Biden wins in a landslide, that these groups may not be as motivated to get engaged in violent behavior. So you don't think what some others have said, because I saw that there was an FBI threat matrix that was leaked out about between November 3rd and Inauguration Day being an increased, have an increased alert time, that there was an increased threat that there may be something happening.
They're all,
so I guess that's always, and you can tell me that in a second.
There always is. So
but you don't think that these guys would, if Trump loses and then he goes out there and bitches and complains and claims that it was stolen from him, and he gives those same type of orders now, instead of stand back and stand down, he tells them engage. You don't think that they would do that even if he lost decisively?
I mean, one is, you remember now Trump's motivation now is, part of it is you have to think about like what is Trump thinking. So Trump's motivation now is, if he loses decisively, he won't concede, he won't show up to the State of the Union, but he's going to have no support mechanism to keep him in office. In other words, the military has already made it clear they're not going to play The U.S. attorneys and FBI have already made it clear they're not going to play. I mean, he's lost Ray. I mean, he's talking about firing Ray. He's pissed off at Barr. I just think he's a much more of a, he's much less powerful and almighty than people make him out to be. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm so angry about sort of these institutions that are folding, the Commission on Presidential Debates, the Cleveland Clinic, all of them that just don't assert any rules against him. I mean, it's just, why are we playing this game anymore? Why are we afraid of him? And we have agency. And I think that's going to show itself. I do. I mean, look, there's always an increased threat matrix during the transition, no matter what. There will be one because you'll have a ex-president or former president who's likely not to concede formally and will not show up to the State of the Union. He'll have supporters. There may be pockets of violence. So I'm not doubting that there'll be pockets of violence and whatever, but this is not going to be a hand-to-hand combat because they won't have anything to hold on to. And that's what they actually need. And I think
that's interesting.
I think it's over for him. And it's like and in some ways you sort of feel like he sees it too. But I mean, I could be wishful thinking, but
I know. I hope you're right, Juliette.
Yeah.
I don't know. These people are lunatics. And our good friend Phil Mudd had an interesting take on this, where he was comparing the radical Islamic threat compared to these guys. And he actually said that he's more concerned about these domestic terrorists than he ever was about ISIS or Al Qaeda striking us on U.S. soil at this point, because ISIS and Al Qaeda no longer have a leader. They don't have someone that's galvanizing them, that's encouraging them to go and attack America and the infidels. Whereas now these groups see Trump as that leader, and that's what worries him. But your point is that if Trump is looked at as a loser now, then they lose that leader, and then they retreat. That's interesting. I really hope that that's true, Juliette. I don't know.
I mean, one of the reasons why they've grown so much in the last 4 years is this sense of acceptance and nurturing towards something, mainstreaming towards something powerful. Well, he's an ex-president who might be indicted, who's more likely than not to leave the country. I mean, there's no question about it now with all the tax stuff coming out, or maybe he leaves. Maybe he leaves December 20th and lets Pence come
That's
in
never
so
happening.
that Pence can. No, just to pardon him. No, just to pardon him.
I don't know. We're getting into novel territory now, don't you think? Like, this is like a movie script. I don't see it happening.
No. I think if you're Trump and you lose, I mean, you're a little bit worried.
He'll be the perpetual victim. I think he will play the perpetual victim all the way till January 20th at 12 o'clock. He may not even show up for the inauguration.
No, he's not showing up for the inauguration.
He'll be screaming somewhere, tweeting his little stubby finger somewhere. It's going to be ugly in that respect. I just hope that it doesn't get violent. Let's take a couple questions. This is because a lot of our viewers have been asking us about this Governor Whitmer situation and what the hell's going on, and because it's something that we haven't seen in I don't think ever. When's the last time we saw a kidnap attempt against the governor? All right, first question, Sue Menard. What federal laws need to be passed to give the Justice Department the tools they need to take out white supremacists and anti-government terrorists? That's a good question. Juliette, where in the hell is Bill Barr? We haven't heard from Bill Barr.
So it's so interesting.
Going on. What is a real Justice Department?
Well, just to be fair, the Justice Department, it was the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI, which are both part of the Justice Department, that brought the cases. It was locally constructed. On a case like this, you would expect Bill Barr to have said something, a normal attorney general, because it's not every day that governors, are threatened with kidnapping. We get that.
Right.
But, and so I think in a sense, he claims that he didn't know about it. If he didn't know about it, that means that his people, or it means his people didn't want to tell him about it because they wanted to keep the investigation going. I don't know what to believe.
That's
but it is
dysfunctional no matter
odd.
what, though. Right,
Yeah.
Juliette? I mean,
Yeah.
if he didn't know about it, that's not normal. And if he didn't know about it because his own people had to keep it from him because they were afraid he would sabotage it. That ain't normal either.
Right.
Right? So
No, that's
people need to
true.
understand that that's not normal. I mean, God bless the line prosecutors and the career people over at DOJ that are still doing their jobs despite how hostile this administration has been to them, and despite Bill Barr just being a Roy
Well, that's
Cohn,
why I think,
to Donald Trump instead of
exactly.
representing the American people. I mean, to that point, Donald Trump last night went on a tweet storm attacking Governor Whitmer and about, how come she didn't thank me? It was my Justice Department that uncovered the plot and stopped it.
Right.
You've got to know it's not your Justice Department. No, it's our Justice Department.
And also the tweet ended with him repeating the language of the people who were going to kidnap her. Free us from these COVID restrictions. Let us get out. No masking. I mean, you're like, okay, literally, it's like the slogan of the guys who were trying to kidnap her. So this is the the terrorism aspects of what Trump does. This is the sort of, okay, what does he mean by that? Well, doesn't matter what he means because they know what they're hearing. It's what they're hearing is what matters, and they hear a president who is saying the same exact things as them.
It just tells you everything you need to know about what we're dealing with this guy and this administration and what's on the line for this election. I want to roll one of our Lincoln Project campaign ads on this subject.
Great.
We've seen this before.
Yay.
In the history of the great American experiment, extremist groups have risen to challenge our democracy. There were anti-Semitic fascists in the 1930s, the KKK, the John Birch Society. But each of these hate groups were opposed by the American president and rejected by the American mainstream. Today, for the first time in our history, an American president embraces extremists and incites them to violence.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
Donald Trump is refusing to accept the results of our democratic elections and calls for violent extremists to stand by. It's dangerous, anti-American, and a threat to democracy unlike any in our history. Millions of Americans have fought to preserve and protect the freedoms Donald Trump now threatens. Now it's our turn, our duty to defend America, not with guns or tanks, but with our votes. Trump or America, fight for America. Vote. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
That's right. It's America or Trump, people. That's what we're facing. I don't know that enough Americans understand the historical context of what we're facing now. I have my own podcast, and recently I interviewed a professor, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, on the rise of authoritarianism.
Yes,
and,
yes.
It's been a continuing theme about these things because the similarities to these other times in history are scary, and it used to be taboo to bring these things up, but I'm sorry, it's really, really similar, and people need to see these images and see what's going on side by side and make sure that that's not the path that they want this country to go down. If another 4 years of Donald Trump, we're going in that direction, and we're trying really hard to point that out.
No, it's appreciated. I don't know how the institutions hold another 4 years. I mean, when you think about what the FBI was able to do in the context of protecting Whitmer, and God knows what other cases they have, and the fact that they still are testifying about the rise of white supremacy. DHS had a statement as well this week. I don't know I don't know how that holds for 4 more years if he wins.
And they're doing this despite the fact that the president of the United States refuses to acknowledge this. He refuses. We had Miles Taylor on 2 weeks ago, and Miles was the former chief of staff over at DHS during the Trump administration, and Miles was very clear about how even they were trying to tell the White House, listen, you need to pay attention to this, and they were like, blah 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 blah. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Don't say anything about it. And then Trump says, those are my people. So there's good people on both sides.
Right.
We've seen this, and it's scary stuff. I think we have our first live caller. I'm very excited about this, Juliette. You get to share this moment with us.
First ever. You guys have been
have
trying to get people to call?
Caller.
Okay.
This
Wait.
is our first
Okay,
Friday
good.
show and our first live caller,
Oh my
and
God.
I'm loving it. Welcome,
Okay, I'm
welcome,
scared.
welcome. State your name, where are you from?
My name's Rebecca. I'm from Seattle, Washington. If I knew I would
Rebecca.
get through, I would have done my makeup.
It's okay. No worries. It's Friday night. I hope you have a drink in
This
your
is
hand.
so great. Hi.
Well, this is awesome. What is your question?
Well, first of all, I just want to say you guys are amazing. I watch you all day, and you're really just keeping my spirits afloat. And I just want to thank you so very much. I
You're
can't
welcome.
even stress how much that is a lifeline.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
My question is I feel like all of our fail safes are failing. Like we tried to get him removed through impeachment. We have the issue with the Supreme Court that seems like it's getting stacked against us. With the complicit, nature of the Senate. What do we do if Trump gets reelected and he just does something even more insane? I don't even know what that would be. But what do we have left to do? I just feel like Democrats and Republicans are using every tool. We're playing by the, rules of a democracy. We're playing with, gentlemen's agreements, and you can't play that with someone who's so dirty and dishonest. And I feel like, what other recourse do we have? I mean, I'm absolutely going to vote. All my friends are going to vote. But if that fails, or if it's rigged, or whatever happens, what do we do from that point to salvage our country?
Rebecca, I think that is the $1 million question. That's why we're so intent on making sure that Donald Trump is defeated. And not only Trump being defeated, but Trumpism, the enablers, and the people who have allowed those guardrails and those fail safes to fail us. What we do at that point, if he wins again, is we have to make sure that, because we have a representative democracy here, a representative constitutional republic, that you have another election in 2 years, and you have to try to vote those people out, like in the Senate. This is something that we're hoping we don't have to face, which is why, and it looks like we're headed toward a defeat of Donald Trump. But it's that is the concern. What happens? You've seen a number of people come out in the national security space. You've seen generals come forward, which are usually people who are not political, warn about what you have just asked us. This is what we fear will happen if there's another 4 years of this guy. So, there's still there would still be some mechanisms in place, obviously, but how they would work, we don't know, and we're not willing to take that risk. So. We share your concern and your fear about that. And let me just say that I noticed in the back that you have a cat tree. So you are a cat person,
Oh my
as
gosh.
am I. And my cat is roaming around right now. I'm just waiting for him to jump on screen. And part of our drinking game tonight is, if you see any live animal come into the screen, you have to take
Mine's
a drink.
over there.
So I'm looking for a little
we do love that.
cat drink.
I also have a lot of jewelry in back. I think you'd appreciate too, because you look like a fashion girl.
That is beautiful. I love a good statement piece.
Yeah.
What was your name again?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for keeping us afloat.
Rebecca.
I lost my job. I lost my health care. I'm worried about my father.
Oh,
passing.
Rebecca.
And, I'm like every other American that's experiencing this right now. And the only thing that can get us through it is coming together and lifting each other up. And you guys have done that. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, I really thank you.
Thank you so much,
Rebecca. Thank you.
And it's for Americans like you, and you are not alone in your loss and your suffering, what's happening. And that's why we do what we do. So stay encouraged. Know that there are people out here fighting for everyday Americans like you that are going through this, who have paid the price because of the failed leadership of this administration and this president. And we will get through this together. And we are praying for you. And hopefully someone's watching this and will help. What kind of job are you looking for? What do you do?
Oh, well, actually, I am taking the opportunity to go back to school. So I'm going back to school, and I'm taking Zoom classes for the first time. So First time being back to school in 20 years, and I'm dealing with the Zoom thing. So,
well, good for you. Good for you. You're never
Rebecca,
too old to learn.
Rebecca, can you hear me? I can't tell if you can hear
well,
me.
thank you
Can
so much,
hear
and
me?
good luck to you guys. I'll be watching.
Oh, she can't hear me. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. See, this is why I like the idea of the call-ins, because these are real people. We get to hear from our supporters, and everyone else gets to see that you're not alone in what you're going through. Because we are all in this together, despite the division and the vitriol that Donald Trump has spewed and his supporters. I think we have another caller. Yes?
Oh my gosh, is it us?
I know, I'm so excited.
Is it?
It's us. They're bringing them up. They're bringing them up. We're going to take a tweet before we get to the live in caller. All right. What is the difference between Trump and a terrorist leader activating a terrorist cell by giving them some sign to look for? We are still fighting a war because of this type of behavior. That's from Regina for Freedom. Juliette, go ahead. You can answer that. I alluded to it earlier when I talked about Phil Mudd, who was former CIA, former FBI. He was an analyst for 25 years, where he talked about why he was more concerned about the domestic terrorist threat versus Al-Qaeda and foreign. But you can expound on that a little bit from the tweet. What's the difference?
Yeah. So, a terrorist leader. Yeah, no, so I'm pretty careful about the kind of language I want to use, and I'll let others call Trump whatever he is. So, but just technically, sort of a terrorist leader would be an individual who organizes violent attacks against civilians. I'm going to get the direct language right. For political purposes. So that could sound like Trump, right? But the term organizes or oversees assumes a certain level of sort of detailed operations by the terrorists. So when you think about bin Laden, so bin Laden is sitting, the Africa embassy bombings in the 19th. Yeah, in a cave. Right. So the Africa embassy bombings, because we had a court case after that. He's sitting in Afghanistan, and he's literally saying, put the truck here at the U.S. Embassy in Kenya, and here, at the U.S. Embassy in Tanzania. And so that's what we sort of mean by direction. So, but I do use the term stochastic terrorism, which I had mentioned before, as others do. I'm going to make it up, which is
define what that is. Define what that is, Julia, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah, so it's a term that you have started to hear over the last couple of years. It's one I've been using. It's the kind of work I do, the kind of work I study, which is a leader. So stochastic terrorism is the use of a platform, Twitter, the bully pulpit, the Oval Office, the use of a platform to instigate or promote violence for political purposes. But the exact nature of the violence is unknown. So it's not targeted. So in other words, it's just statistically more likely. No one's surprised that there's more white supremacy terrorism during the Trump administration. But you couldn't say on this date, Trump said, everyone, go take off their mask and go cough on people, right? He doesn't say that. But this is my point about it doesn't matter what he says. It matters what his supporters hear. And what they hear is, the sounds of acceptance. So that's basically the difference of how we think about it. I know a lot of people use the terminology terrorist because of his promotion of political violence. But it has a different meaning, I think, sort of legally and in the counterterrorism world. So I'm just a little bit careful. Do I think he promotes violence? Yeah. I think he promotes terrorism. I will say that. And I think it's weird that reporters hide behind the word violence, because I think violence doesn't give it its due. The president is seeking violence for political gain. To either protect himself in the Oval Office or to go against governors. And I think it would be really important for reporters to start to use the correct terminology. He's not, there's a reason why he's having people be violent, and it's for political purposes. That's terrorism. So he promotes terrorism. It's hard to admit.
Right. Yeah. It's hard, and right. You don't want to you don't want to admit that the president of the United States is doing
Yeah,
this.
not at all.
Another
I
good
mean,
friend, a friend of mine. She's a professor of rhetoric down at University of Texas, Jennifer Murcia, and she wrote a book, Demagogue President, and she talks about the rhetorical devices that he uses, and one of them is called ad baculum, which is it's a rhetorical device to doing what you said. It's like, I'm not saying, but I'm saying. And it's a threat a threat of some sort that's masked by that. It's also called, there's another one called paralipsis too, where he says things that, well, other people are telling me, but to throw it out there and try to absolve himself of direct responsibility for it. So we have another caller that we are going to take.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Our second live caller.
Woo.
Do we have our live caller? There he is.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome, sir.
Hello.
What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Jeff. I'm calling from Connecticut.
Welcome, Jeff. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, well, big, huge fan, Tara, of course, and all the work that everyone is doing at Lincoln Project. My question is, I know it's obviously a bigger panel usually is with Rick and Steve and Mike and so forth, but being part of the apparatus that is the Republican Party and being part as an operative as you are, or I guess were for many years, is there any sense of responsibility that maybe you have as helping to create what is now the current manifestation and kind of run amok, let's just say, of the Republican Party?
That's a great question. And that's something that I have personally talked about, where I've had to re-examine what role did I play in all of this. A couple nights ago, I talked about how, on Facebook, you have on this day, it shows you what you posted on Facebook years ago on this day. And I look at some of the language that I use and some of the things that I posted on Facebook over the years during the Obama administration. And if I had to do it all over again, I would not have used some of that language. It was inflammatory. It was divisive. And for any role that I may have played in creating the environment we're in now, I regret that. And which is why I'm so passionate about making sure that the people who are continuing to do this have some self-reflection and that we defeat it.
Yeah. Because
I was in the middle of it. I saw it, which makes me very effective at fighting back against it. So I by no means do I deny that I may have played a role in this, given the things that I said and did and some of the stances that I took and how I communicated it. It probably was not helpful. So that's why I'm passionate about making sure that we don't continue to go down that path. Thank God I had enough self-awareness to go, wait, hold on. This is going awry. Yeah. This isn't right. And hopefully, there are more of us than the others, and we can defeat it. So I appreciate that.
Thank
you for
that courage. I definitely recognize that courage, and bravo to you guys and your team for everything that you guys have done. Teaching us lefties sort of how to attack, which is fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome.
It is true.
And Stuart Stevens wrote an entire book about basically a mea culpa called It Was All a Lie, about his experiences. And he was in this game a lot longer than I have been, and he's seen a lot more of the ugliness, the underbelly ugliness of what happened in the right, in the conservative right and Republican circles. Then he lays it all out in his book, and he's had a come to Jesus moment about it as well. So we all played some type of role in it in some way, some more than others. But I think we are paying our dues now to try to do the right thing. Thank you so much. We appreciate you supporting us.
That's nice.
Take care.
Bye.
Before we take another question, in the time that we have, I want to talk a little COVID, because it's still raging, Juliette.
Okay.
And you played a role when you were at DHS on the H1N1 swine flu response. And I know, because we're friends and I follow you, how you were. Well, we talked about this also when we were up at Harvard. When I was there, you're still there. I missed Cambridge. About logistics, when this whole thing was beginning to unfold, and you were really, really looking at this going, look, if the federal government was ever in a position to scale up a response to address a national emergency, this would be it. Can you talk a little bit about how abysmally this administration failed in its response, and how it really was just a basic game of logistics and they just freaking blew it?
They just blew it. And it's, you know, just I like don't even know where to begin. So I mean, in terms of just the utter shock of where we are, and we're just in a horrible place right now. And you're starting to see the numbers again, as we anticipated with winter. People aren't able to be outside as much, and I do think, you know, I do think the American public is not ready for what's about to happen again. I do write a commentary for The Atlantic as well. I've been fortunate to have that platform to write occasionally. And my last piece for them was, you know, this is really through 2021 now, that if you actually just look at the calendar, and I don't mean to get people depressed. I mean, we're learning to adapt to the virus better. We're learning there's going to be better treatments. There's going to be better testing. There's going to be better ways to socially distance. So it's not like it was in March when, you know, I mean, we've learned a lot, masking, all the things that matter in terms of living better, right? Living in a, but it won't be normal by any stretch of the imagination. And it shouldn't be because of the way our numbers are going. Other countries have figured this out. That should also make us happy. But we, in January through March of 2020, Donald Trump committed the original sin of which we are not able to get out of, which is he minimized the virus. He did not prepare. What people never say when they quote that part from Bob Woodward's book, like he didn't want to scare people. What that meant was he did not surge resources during that time. That's the time that the logistics thing, that you're moving shit, basically. I mean, it's not rocket science. You're just, you know, you're moving masks and gowns and respirators and ventilators and everything that you need and PPE. You're moving it. And the only people who have the capacity, you're invoking all the, in a hope that you can get a handle of it and limit its spread. Once you had the spread that we saw, then you have to go inside. He had another opportunity to make right, which is we were able to flatten the curve. I think it's possible that we may not be able to in some places in terms of the hospital capacity, but I think in most places we were able to flatten the curve. That meant that our hospital resources didn't crash. But that didn't stop the virus. People mistake what flattening the curve was. It just meant that people got the virus, hopefully, you know, slower over time. And then Donald Trump then criticized the public health measures that were supposed to allow us to go outside again, right? Socially, continue to socially distance, mask, right. So that is
it's pretty simple, right? It's formulaic. They had the playbook in front of them from your
playbook,
Obama, and they threw it out. And he, not only did they screw up the logistics side of it royally by not invoking the Defense Production Act, by not getting the PPE where necessary, he completely undermines the task force with the instructions of social distance, wear a mask, and wash your hands, and we wouldn't be where we freaking are right now.
We
wouldn't be here. More people would be alive.
Right. More people would be alive. We would be out freer. Schools would be open. Because, you know, I love, you know, you and I are both on air for CNN. Like, I love my doctors on CNN. I love the hundreds of doctors that are on. I mean, the truth, I already know, I know what to do. Like, I just, you know, I mean, it's the president isn't changing. Like the message hasn't changed. He's a nightmare. He's a super spreader. He's anti-science. He's politicizing scientific institutions and scientific offices and bureaus. And the American public is smarter than him, right? Because if you do look at the polling, most Americans get masking. They understand they're in economic deprivation. They know that we cannot move forward without both a stimulus, but also controlling the virus. And they're not idiots. Their kids, their parents are dead and their kids are home. You know, it's, I mean, I hate to be crude about it, but that's the reality.
But that's the reality, right? That's the reality. And it's in everyone's face, and they can't deny that, no matter what bullshit Donald Trump spews to people to tell them that the sun sets in the east and not the west. They see it, they live it every day. And I think that's partially why his poll numbers are tanking, because they've had enough of that. And it's, this recent bout with COVID, I think is finally pushing people over the edge. Before we take our next live caller, I want to bring up, you brought how he's a super spreader in chief. Dr. Fauci actually admitted that the event at the White House for Amy Coney Barrett was a super spreader event. And that's pretty bold coming out of, Dr. Fauci, who's been trying to walk the line as best he could. And finally, he's just said, fuck it. He's finally going, I'm telling the truth now. I don't care if they fire me because, people are dying and this is crazy. What are they going to do? You had Dr. Bright, who resigned. He was the head of the federal vaccine, the agency that's in charge of federal vaccines.
Right.
He was ostracized and pushed out. He became a whistleblower. He finally quit this week and said, I resigned. This is a disaster and I can't be a part of this anymore. Now Trump wants to go out because he claims that he's been cured. He wants to go out and have rallies. He was on Sean Hannity last night talking about how he wants to have rallies. Let's take a listen to that. Then we'll get to Marianne.
I think I'm going to try doing a rally on Saturday night if we have enough time to put it together. But we want to do a rally in Florida, probably in Florida on Saturday night. Might come back and do one in Pennsylvania in the following night. And it's incredible what's going on. I feel so good.
Have you had a test since your diagnosis a week ago?
Well, what we're doing is probably the test will be tomorrow, the actual test, because there's no reason to test all the time. But they found very little infection or virus, if any. I don't know that they found any. I didn't go into it greatly with the doctor.
What does that mean?
Juliette, how freaking insane
what does that
is this?
mean?
It's insane. It's insane. It's insane.
Right. This is where, and I feel this way about voting as well. I think this is where, America's constitutional structure and the fact that we're sort of, that we're a hodgepodge of governor's offices and mayor's offices. And, that's who I work with is those offices. I train them. I think that's going to save us because, and it's not, we focus on the crazy governors like Florida and Texas, but, look, Alabama,
Georgia.
Alabama is a Republican governor. Numbers are looking good. In other words, smart people can get this, and ideological people just have to be voted out. So this is
exactly,
and it's and we're just we're at a stage where he claims that Biden would be responsible for 2 million deaths.
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Juliette,
I'm not his doctor. I'm not a therapist, but. There's language to describe what, the reaction is clearly having the medication or where his brain is right now. And it's going to be like this. But, to the previous caller, that young woman who had lost her job, who looked, so
Rebecca.
upset. So, basically, I decided, I have sort of a joke to myself that I now say out loud, which is you just have to pace the rage. Like you actually physically can't absorb the madness. So I just, so part of it is I'm going to have my issues that I'm pacing about, but I can't be upset about everything because I don't have
it's exhausting.
But the other is
that's why I think, Juliette, on that note, we should take a drink. Take a drink.
We should take a drink to pacing the rage. I agree. And you have now a caller.
Yes. Let's bring in Marianne while we take a drink and pace ourselves
Marianne.
here.
Yes.
Hi, Marianne from California. What part of California are you from?
I'm in Redlands, California.
Oh,
beautiful.
Can I tell you something about Redlands? Because I grew up in LA.
I'm so excited to be on here. Thank you for choosing me.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Juliette. You wanted to say something about Redlands.
Yeah, I can't tell Marianne. So
I'm having trouble hearing Juliette.
Yeah, I think they're not hearing me. So that's okay. Don't worry about it.
No worries. She had a story about Redlands, but we'll wait on that because you can't hear.
It was a good story.
Try again, real quick. See, she might be able to hear you now. Go ahead,
can you hear me now?
No. All right. We tried.
It's that YouTube TV thing.
It's all right.
Yeah, you go ahead and chat.
Okay. Marianne, we are thrilled to have you, and thank you for patiently waiting. I could see your face and your reactions when we played the video of Trump on Hannity last night. We were trying to bring you in so folks could see you. You were just exasperated. What were you thinking about that? And then you could ask your question.
I don't understand. If you take a test for COVID, you either know you're positive or you know you're negative. It's not, well, maybe I have it a little bit, maybe I'm immune now, maybe it's disappeared. And for him to sit there and go, well, I don't know. He's the president of the United States. Shouldn't he ask, am I positive? Am I negative? I don't understand that.
But you know what, Marianne? He knows. He's just lying. So he knows that's what makes it so ridiculous. It's because he is the president. He does know. And he's trying to convince the rest of us, as if we're all dumb, that he doesn't know and that we're just supposed to accept that. I mean, Sean Hannity doesn't press him on whether he has a negative test or not because he's an acolyte and he's in his back pocket here. But anyone worth their salt would have continued, Mr. President, are you negative or not? So, push him on that. And,
to know.
Right.
I would have
That's
demanded
right. Well, that's what we're here
to
for.
know.
That's what we're here for. And to point these things out so that the American people can see this is the type of duplicitous president that we have. And is this the kind of leadership you want? Did you have a question for us, Marianne?
Well, this year I'm a poll worker. Very first time.
Good for you.
Because I want to make sure that everybody's vote is counted and heard, their voice is heard, that everybody has a chance to contribute to this election. Whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, undecided, I want to make sure that everybody has the chance to vote. But when he blew that dog whistle for people to come and watch the polls, to be poll watchers, it scared the shit out of me. And I'm a little nervous about doing this. I want to do it because I'm very patriotic and I love this country. I don't love what he's doing to it right now, but I'm afraid that poll watchers are going to show up and try to suppress people from having the right to vote. And I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be caught in the middle of Trump's voter suppression game and people's rights to vote. And it terrifies me.
You know what? First of all, God bless you for being a poll watcher.
Yes,
that's
for doing this.
Fantastic. That is something that we have been calling for people to do if they are able to do it, because we need to have good and decent people like yourself who want to make sure the integrity of this election is maintained. And you had every right to feel what you felt, because I felt it too when Trump started those calls for people to go out to the polls, and Don Jr.'s putting out these whacked out videos calling for Trump's army to go to the polls. But I think, and I'll let Juliette come in and back me up on this, but what you should, first of all, do not fear, right? That's what they want. Right. They want to intimidate you. That's what they're doing. And you don't look to me like you scare easily. So I don't think anyone's going to scare you from doing the right thing. But for others who are feeling the same way, make sure that your local county election officials, supervisors, whoever it is that you are working with to become a poll watcher, they need to have a plan in place for this. That is their responsibility, to make sure that not only are the voters safe, but you guys are safe too from any of this nonsense. And if they don't have a plan in place, then you need to demand one, because that is their responsibility. This is not some banana republic. This is America. So we don't put up with poll intimidation, no matter what the freaking president of the United States tries to say. So, Juliette, is there something you want to add to that to reassure Marianne?
Yeah, and I know she can't hear me, but other people. Yeah, and or she can watch. I know she can't hear me now, but so I spend a lot of time with training mayors and governors in this regard. So I have a lot of confidence that there's a lot of implementation planning going on at the local and state level across the parties. People are, we tend to focus on the crazies. So I just, part of what people need to do, because I hear the panic in people's voice and stuff, is this is such a small minority of the American public. It will be even smaller after he's no longer the president. It's disturbing that he is our president, but he is just a human. He's just, he's not indestructible, right? And so just remember that. I mean, it's been well before COVID, it was a failed presidency. He had lost in the midterms. He gets lucky with Supreme Court nominate, seats and stuff, but he's not, he's a ineffective, unqualified, unsuccessful president who's now sick and overseeing a pandemic. And so he's got a power to get a very, very small group of people very, very enraged. They tend to be disorganized. They tend to be without much outside support. They are rising in numbers, but they in no way would overwhelm a normal police department, let alone even a small police department. And we just have to keep our heads on about the numbers, the number game, which is we are the vast majority. So you get out and, I grant you, we're going to talk after this, you will have a totally safe experience. And when these people start to see, I mean, these are losers. I mean, when they start to see the numbers of people that are showing up voting, or the kinds of people who are showing up to be poll watchers, it's going to be very hard to galvanize. And you're starting to see that. You're seeing the Senate walk away from him. You're seeing McConnell. By 3 weeks from now, this man could be so isolated it just, as I said, this could just as likely end in a whimper rather than fireworks. So. And so you be there for the whimper. But I do want to say that there's a lot of work being done in that regard.
Yes, there's a lot. In case you didn't hear her, Marianne, in a nutshell, Juliette said there's a lot of work being done with securing the infrastructure, and that local police departments would not be overwhelmed by any of the potential losers that would decide to try to come and disrupt things, and that there's a lot more of us than there are of them. And with that, I will leave you with the parting words of my grandfather, who was a police officer for 40 years. He always told me to pay attention. So just pay attention and keep an eye on what's going on and speak up. And thank you for being a great American and poll watching. Thank you, Marianne.
And thank you. Thank you for the Lincoln Project. You guys are my daily bread and butter.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. Be safe out there. Juliette, you've been so incredibly generous.
I'm getting a hat for this.
We will get you a hat for spending so much time and being so generous with us, having a good time. Before I let you go, we're going to take one more drink together, and I
need to go to bed.
I know. It's been a week. But we have one more Lincoln Project ad that I know you will enjoy because the President of the United States claims that he has been it's been a miracle. He's been cured. He said on Rush Limbaugh's show today that he's not taking any more medication. The doctors cleared him apparently to start doing his rallies again, and which we just talked about. So he thinks that it was a blessing from God that he got COVID, which is absurd. But of course, Lincoln Project, we have our own take on this.
Already? Okay, good. Cheers to the Lincoln Project.
To the miracle.
Yeah.
I execute judgment on you, COVID-19.
I caught it. Anybody in here a person of faith?
Let's all pray.
We should pray.
We pray.
Say a prayer.
We pray.
Pray. Let's pray.
Earnest prayer.
Let's pray.
I brought my Bible.
God walks on White House grounds. You need to send in that $3,000, $35,000, $100,000 check. You're going to write your checks to Paula White Ministry.
In the name of Jesus.
I don't do a lot of things that are bad.
Let pride fall.
Try and do nothing that's bad.
Let pride fall.
I don't like to have to ask for forgiveness.
Absolutely and hallelujah.
Every life brings love into this world.
We command all satanic pregnancies to miscarry right now.
Woe to the nation that calls evil good.
So I think this was a blessing from God.
And calls good evil.
I think many of them are going to have to drink some wine in communion and ask for forgiveness for their hypocrisy on all of this. Good grief. Juliette Kayyem, I love you. Thank you for what you're doing.
God.
Thank you for joining us. and take another drink, have a good night, and get some
Okay,
rest.
I am.
Talk to you
I'm
soon.
like exhausted. It's like 10:12. It's like 2 hours too late for me.
I'm telling you, we're all on adrenaline. We say no sleep till Biden. Good night.
No, that's true. That's true. Good night, you guys. Thank you for everything you do. Bye.
Oh my goodness. We gotta love Juliette. She's a riot. I love her. And she's super smart too. And like when if you don't follow Juliette, I hope you continue to you pay attention and follow her. I think we put up her Twitter. She always has very, very insightful, interesting things to say. We are going to take one more caller. We're loving this live call in. We might have a cat sighting too. I feel him at my feet, which may mean I have to drink again. So I hope you guys are playing along with us tonight. Do we know if Trump has tweeted at all? I don't know if he's tweeted in the last hour since we've been on the air or not, but we've taken plenty of sips in the meantime in case he did. All right, let's bring our next caller.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I
Am
love
I
the
on?
New York shirt. You are on. What is your name and where are you from?
My name is Ann Sullivan, and I live in Long Beach, California.
I know Long Beach well.
Okay. My whole family is in a state of anxiety over this election. Anti-anxiety medication, way too much drinking, a lot of crying, a lot of hiding in closets. So I'm a little more optimistic about how the election will turn out. And I've been telling them something that I want you to correct me if I'm wrong on this. They're all very worried that if Joe Biden wins, there will be some kind of either paramilitary or military response to keep Joe Biden out. Now, I believe that on January 20th at noon, Joe Biden becomes president. He doesn't need an inauguration. He doesn't need a Bible. He doesn't need an oath. He doesn't need a parade. He becomes president. He can be in his basement in Delaware and he becomes president. He doesn't have to live in the White House. He can govern from his basement in Delaware. And while he's doing that, I'm guessing the Secret Service will get busy evicting the squatters that are in the White House.
Well, I can assure you, and please tell me people are not literally hiding in closets. I hope not. I don't want anyone in your family. Oh my, okay. Long Beach is way too beautiful of a place for people to be hiding in closets. If they need to decompress, go to the beach. That's number one. Number two, please reassure your family that Joe Biden will take, if he wins, he will peacefully take control of this country and be sworn in as the president of the United States properly in an inauguration. Because as we say here at the Lincoln Project, we will vote, he will lose, and he will leave. And we are confident that our military generals, Secret Service, there are enough good and decent people in these positions. Even Republicans at that point may finally say, listen, Mr. President, you lost, you will now leave. Your family can rest assured that there will not be any type of paramilitary activity. It will be a peaceful transition of power. Now, what happens in between now and then with some of the crazies, as we were talking about earlier tonight, that remains to be seen. And I'm encouraged that our intelligence services and our FBI and DHS, they're on it and they're making sure that they get these guys before it turns violent. But I can tell you, I'm more than confident that your family, they can sleep well knowing that we will vote, Trump will lose, and he will leave.
Well,
I hope that gives you some
glad they
comfort.
can hear it from you because they just think I'm in Pollyanna world.
No, I get it. Listen, there's been all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and you just don't know. These are things that we never thought we would see coming out of the White House. You saw what happened with with the president basically activating these guys to lock and load. With the plot against Whitmer. I listen. I understand. They're not that out of their minds to think that. Yeah, I get it, but I'm still confident in the institutions that will protect the peaceful transition of power. And that's why we have to make sure everyone gets out there and vote, get out there and vote, get out there and vote. So it's a landslide and we can vote that bastard right on out of the White House. You can tell your
I've
family I
actually
said that.
signed up to be a poll worker.
Good. You're the second one tonight.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So,
well, thank you so much. I love your shirt, New
thank
York,
you.
New York. My husband is from
Oh, this
Brooklyn,
is for
so
the
we are.
elementary school play. It's
Oh,
Western
I only saw the
Side
top.
Story. Yeah, my
Oh,
niece's
how cute.
5th grade play. So I'm
I
cooking.
love it. Well, so that's a play on West Side Story, I'm assuming, which is actually my
Yes.
husband's favorite movie of all
Oh.
time. And yes, and anytime it comes on, we watch it. And it's a great American classic. I
I
love
think of
musicals, so
Officer
even better.
Krupke when I see Bill Barr.
Oh my gosh, he is an Officer Krupke. Kind of looks like that too, right?
Yes.
What a feckless idiot. It's similar characters. I love it. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and God bless you and your family.
You too.
Tell them,
Thank
don't
you for
worry.
having me. Bye-bye.
Good night. I love it. And yes, West Side Story is my husband's favorite movie in the whole world. Oh my goodness. All right. We're going to wrap it up. It has been a long week. I'm going to do my public service announcement because I'm so encouraged now that we had 2 poll workers in our call-in callers, which is fabulous. I hope that there are more folks out there who are inspired by those wonderful women and they do the same, because we have to be the sentinels in the watchtower. It's up to us. It's our responsibility. This is our republic. So it starts with our peaceful transition of power. Okay, tonight we want to continue giving you voting information and resources, so here is the latest. In-person early voting is underway in Arizona and Ohio, 2 very, very important battleground states. And North Carolina and Georgia begin next week, also 2 very important battleground states. So if you live in those states, get to voting early. Those are the places that we at the Lincoln Project deem swing states, as I just said, and defeating Donald Trump and his enablers in those states. You have Senate races there as well, is also crucial. We also encourage you to check out vote411.org. That's vote411.org. They have personalized election information from the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters Education Fund. And you can go there, and if you're a first-time voter, they have a checklist of what you can do, where you can go, and navigate the first-time voting experience. So check out vote411.org. And that's it for my PSA tonight. I want to make sure that I also give a plug to our sister show, Vote for America, hosted by Jennifer Horn, one of the Lincoln Project co-founders. You can find that show on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. It streams right here on Lincoln Project TV, here on the Lincoln Project YouTube channel. And that is Vote for America. It's on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, hosted by Jennifer Horn. All right, that is it for the week. Thank you so much. Another big thank you to my good friend Juliette Kayyem, who brought the fire tonight and lots of information. I hope people learned some things from her. She's fantastic, and I hope we can have her back. And I hope that she's right, that they whimper away after Trump loses. That would be fantastic. Right back under to the rocks from which they came. On that note, join us again on Wednesday. We will be back Wednesday night. We're taking care of some technical things, so we'll be back Wednesday, fresh and ready to go. And don't forget to check out the Lincoln Project podcast. We have a clip here with Mary Trump. Good night, everybody.
But in the grand scheme of things, the diagnosis is irrelevant. We need to be really concerned about his behaviors and how they have an impact on other people. And what I find really troubling is that people speculate about his physical health all the time and the physical health of other public figures. I mean, I'm sure we all remember Hillary Clinton semi-fainting at a 9/11 memorial because she had the flu or pneumonia or something. I mean, that was talked about endlessly. But quite honestly, any physical ailments Donald might have are significantly less dangerous to the populace than any psychiatric disorders he might have, especially if, they lead to impulsive, irresponsible, unempathetic behavior, which we see every day.
cry for me, White House staffers. The truth is, I will infect you all through my tweeting, my mad existence. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance. I always say too much, never mind the thousands of lies I have told to you. As for wearing masks and acting sane, that is nothing that I will ever do. So don't cry for me, Secret Service, though COVID might just well kill you. While on my joyride, I spread the virus. I broke my promise, won't keep my distance.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great. And that's what I want for everybody. If you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, Regeneron. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. You're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. Regeneron. Because I feel great. I feel like perfect. I want to get for you what I got. Regeneron. And you'll see some amazing things happen. You're going to get better. You're going to get better fast, just like I did.